Eucalyptus regnans forests such as this one are the most carbon-dense forests in the world. The reason they have so much carbon per hectare is because the trees grow absolutely huge. Eucalyptus regnans trees can grow to around 100 metres in height, with a huge girth, massive trunks, and those trunks are composed largely of carbon. That carbon is sucked out of the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide by the growing tree and converted into wood. The carbon stored in that wood remains locked up out of the atmosphere as the tree grows and ages, and even when the tree dies, the carbon stays in that wood potentially for a very long time. One of the reasons that these temperate eucalypt forests are the most carbon-dense forests in the world is that the conditions in which they grow are high rainfall and relatively good soils which allow the trees to grow huge. But they're also fairly cool conditions compared to, say, a tropical rainforest, so decomposition is quite slow. So the carbon that is sucked out of the atmosphere and turned into wood takes a long time to be released back into the atmosphere or turned into soil. So these type of forests have huge amounts of fallen logs and branches and woody debris, which is a significant carbon store. Trees like this can contain up to around 70 tonnes of carbon in a single tree, and you combine that with an understory of rainforest trees, which is effectively another forest and another significant amount of carbon, and on top of that all of the dead wood in these forests, and you can have above ground carbon of over 700 tonnes per hectare, which compares with an average of around 200 tonnes of carbon per hectare for most younger forests and forests elsewhere in the world. When a mature forest such as this that has been accumulating carbon for hundreds of years is logged, it will take hundreds of years for that carbon that was stored in that forest to recover, and that is provided that the forest is allowed to recover and is not logged again. These forests that are earmarked for logging are intended to be logged on cycles of around 90 years. So you're only going to achieve 90 years of carbon accumulation, which won't even come close to restoring the original carbon that was present in these mature forests. The small amount of long-lived wood products that eventuate from a logging operation in a forest like this are not enough to compensate for the massive loss of carbon that occurs during that logging and post that logging operation. Post-logging regeneration burn, which is a very intensive burn which turns a lot of that carbon into smoke and pumps it straight into the atmosphere. Aside from that, most of what is removed from a forest such as this when logging occurs is turned into paper and cardboard and short-lived products which will release their carbon into the atmosphere within a matter of years. The net result is a vast carbon emission to the atmosphere. Contrast this with plantation forestry, where there's much less wastage, much lower emissions of carbon involved in producing timber and paper products from plantation forests, and you don't have a huge carbon stock to start with to be lost from a plantation forest.